All right, we got the Krug show going on a Sunday night. We got to hit the band, right? Where's the band? There we go. And I don't have Jordan Elliot, even though Jordan Elliot we told the books that we were going to have Jordan Elliot, but for some reason we haven't been able to connect with Jordan in Vegas. He's out at the Pro Bowl, and so we may have him, but right now we don't. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit with you through the chat, and then also I'm going to put in the chat the call line. So we'll go Krug phone right here. excuse me for that, but yeah, I just put the call link in the chat, and if anybody would like to participate via the call link, we can do that as well. Yeah, the call-in show. There we go. We could do the call-in line. Yes, you can call in on the Krug show if you'd like. And right away we have SOT. SOT, go ahead. Go ahead, SOT. What were you gonna say?
Hi, I'm in California. I'm middle watching this NASCAR race on TV. I know the Super Bowl is going to be next week on Fox.
Who are you picking?
For the Super Bowl?
Yep.
The Chiefs. I'll show you a video of my prediction.
You know what? We don't want to see the video, but I'm also going with the Chiefs. And SOT we just had to get you in and get you out quickly. But SOT sits sometimes in the green room for a long period of time. So I want to get him in and get him out. But what I want to talk about is this was a big weekend for the NFL draft, as far as, you know, who's looking good, as far as the Senior Bowl and that kind of thing, the East-West Shrine game, the NFL PA game. And I wanted to get into some of the guys that, to me, you know, look good in the Senior Bowl. And I don't know how many people, you know, are following the Senior Bowl, but every year in the Senior Bowl, somebody kind of pops up out of nowhere and is just phenomenal. I mean, really, really good. And this year, of course, it's no different. There's you know, good players in the Senior Bowl again. The guy who I thought really jumped out to me was Tyjae Spears from Tulane, who is a small back, but man, with burst. This guy's got unbelievable burst and stop and start quickness, and he's incredibly sudden. And I thought, you know, I saw him at Tulane. He looked good at Tulane with the Wave. He had 2,900 yards plus over 4 years there. And just, you know, this is a guy who runs with a lot of power, and a lot more power than you would think. He's 5'10", 204 pounds. Now, the Niners, with Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell, they probably don't need a running back, but man, this guy is something else. Dominated against SC in the Cotton Bowl. He had 205 yards on 17 carries, including for touchdowns, and then went off in the AAC game, title game against Central Florida. He ran for almost 200 yards that day on 22 carries. So really exciting little back, 5'10", 204 pounds, but just great vision, really low center of gravity. And if you watched, you know, Tyjae Spears in the practices, really impressive. I mean, really impressive. So, you know, the ability to, you know, to break tackles and to move the pile. And he's a little back, so he's probably going to be there on day 3. But man, watch out for him. Tyjae Sharp really looked good, I thought, this week in Mobile. And I don't know that he looked great in the actual Senior Bowl game itself, but just watching the practices during the week, he looked really, really good. Another guy who I wanted to see this week, because he was a great college football player, and I'm kind of wondering what's he going to be in the NFL, and that's Riley Moss from Iowa, the Iowa cornerback. And I don't know that he's a cornerback in the NFL. You know, he might be more of a free safety, but man, he really knows how to play. And just watching him this week, in some of the drills, in some of the practices, this is just a football player. Forget, you know, if you're looking for you know, an an out of this world type athlete, Riley Moss is not your guy. But he's really smooth in his footwork. He's really well coached. He's really instinctive in coverage. And this is a guy kind of like Hufanga who just forget the measurables. The guy is a football player. And he just makes a lot of plays. Now, I don't know that he's quick enough to hang with NFL corners outside as a corner, but maybe he's a slot corner. He's definitely a really smart player. He might be a free safety. But I just think Riley Moss in a game where the NFL uses the sub package, 70% of the time, and you got all kinds of DBs on the field at all times. Riley Moss from Iowa is somebody that you got to see. I mean, you got to see. He's just a total pros pro. And if you watched Iowa football, they had a horrendous offense, but a killer defense. And he was one of the main reasons why. So he stood out to me this week. Brock Purdy's old teammate, the Iowa State edge rusher, Will McDonald the fourth, really jumped out to me this week. I mean, and this guy's an incredible athlete. He's going to test very well in Indy, I would imagine. He's a little bit on the thin side. He weighs probably right around 240 pounds, maybe 245, something like that. They weighed in at the in season around 235. But I guess they weighed him at the Senior Bowl at over 240 pounds. And he's athletic. I mean, he's really athletic, and he's a really interesting pass rusher. You can never have enough edge rushers. And I think Will McDonald the fourth is going to be somebody to really watch for. The Niners are looking for an offensive tackle. And this is a really a tough spot to fill, because typically it's very difficult to get an offensive tackle that can play in the NFL. But Darnell Wright from Tennessee is a really exciting prospect. Some people like him as a guard. I kind of like him as a tackle. Probably not a left tackle, more of a right tackle. But if you're looking at Mike McGlinchey moving on in free agency, and I think that's probably pretty likely, a guy like Darnell Wright might be an interesting name for the 49ers. And he showed out, I thought, this week in Mobile. The guy who absolutely I thought had the highlight of the week, and he's another guy who's probably going to be a day 3 pick. And that is, and I don't want to butcher his name, but he's the Northwestern defensive lineman, Adetomiwa, Adebayor, let's see, try it again, Adetomwa, Adebawar. And I'll tell you, watching this guy, he's not the biggest guy. But he is just an unbelievable leverage player. They listed him this week at 6'1", 285 pounds. So he's kind of a tweener, right? He's not really a tackle. He's not really an end. What he is a sub package pass rusher. But man, he looked good in practice. I mean, functional strength for days. Thursday, I'm looking at him, and I'm watching some of that practice film, and the one-on-ones behind, that they do behind with the O lineman going against the D lineman. And this guy has to be seen to be believed. I mean, he's really, really good. Tons of power. I mean, he had a bull rush that you can find online against the Notre Dame interior lineman, Jarrett Patterson. And Patterson's got good functional strength, and it was a really good player for the Irish. He takes Patterson and he put him on roller skates, and Adebawar waltz Patterson about, I would say, 10 to 12 yards into the backfield, right into the quarterback's lap. I've seen this drill done for years, and I don't see that many guys who just blow the offensive lineman right off the ball. And just, it was like the offensive lineman had no ability to anchor. He had no strength at all. I mean, this guy is, what position does he play? That's a TBD. I would say he's probably a 3 technique. Which is, he's an interior player for sure. I don't think he's a 3-4 defensive end. I don't think he's a 5 technique 3-4 end who's gonna, I don't think he's a 2 gapper. I think he's a penetrator, but he doesn't have incredible moves right now. But what he does have is the ability to just get off the ball, get low, and just play with power and force. I mean, it's really something. Um, they say he's going to be a top 5 pick, or a top 100 pick. I mean, I should say not top 5, top 100. So he's probably going to be there in the 3rd round. But man, I mean, I have a hard time saying his name, but I will not have a hard time remembering this player. He's really, really fun to watch. Really special. And I thought he really stood out this weekend in Mobile, and just not just this weekend, but also in the practices leading up. I thought he was a guy that kind of stood out. Another guy that we really got to talk about is there was a strong local flavor to the Senior Bowl this year. And I thought, I did the Stanford pregame show for really the last 10 years or so. And Stanford has a very, under David Shaw, they had a very conservative run, and run some more type offense. When the rest of the nation was going hurry up and spread and, spreading things out and throwing the ball all over the place, Stanford ran the ball while teams are running to the line of scrimmage, trying to play with, at a breakneck pace. Stanford played a very slow, deliberate pace. So they really played opposite of the way most teams play. And when you play a certain style, it either benefits or it works at the detriment of certain players. I thought one guy who's a hell of a player for Stanford is Michael Wilson. And I thought he was one of the best players I saw in Mobile this week. I mean, great route runner, really solid football player. He's had some injuries, but he wasn't featured a lot in Stanford's offense. And, he's got strong hands. He's competitive. He's probably going to be a day 3 pick. But, you're talking about a guy with good size and good movement ability. I mean, I don't know what he's going to run, but Michael Wilson was a productive player in the Pac-12, and he's got good size. So that was the first Stanford player that stood out to me. And I expected Michael Wilson to be, I thought he would be like a late day 3 pick. Now it sounds like Michael Wilson may wind up being a high day 3 pick. So he was a guy that stood out. The other Stanford player that really stood out to me was Caillou Blue Kelly, the corner, who, he's really a good player, good corner with size. He's tough. He's got tremendous instincts. He's smart. Caillou Blue Kelly is a really, really good collegiate football player. And I don't know how he's going to test, but I love the way he looked in the practices. And I mean, in the one-on-one drills, he mirrored guys up and down the field. He might have been the most talented cover guy on his team at the Senior Bowl. So he definitely improved his draft stock in Mobile. And a lot of people think Caillou Blue Kelly may wind up being maybe a 2nd round pick, maybe high 3rd. But, the 49ers, I believe, have 3 picks in the 3rd round, and they're going to be looking for a corner, you would think. And Caillou Blue Kelly from Stanford is definitely an interesting player. Now, I've talked a lot already about how I think it's kind of time for us to look for a replacement, I think, for Javon Kinlaw. And just that Kinlaw he really doesn't give you much right now. He looks like a ton, getting off the bus, he looks awesome, but he doesn't really consistently anchor against the run. We know he's never really been a pass rusher. So, I mean, that's really it. I mean, if you can't rush the passer and you don't anchor against the run, you're not getting a lot done. Well, there was a guy this week that I saw that would be a really, really good, 2-gap Kinlaw replacement, and that's Jared Clark, who's 6'3", 300 and close to 350 pounds. And my buddy, Rick Mueller, who I worked with in the Canadian League, has been the recruiting coordinator at Coastal Carolina. And Coastal Carolina's had some big-time players, man. And Jared Clark out of Coastal Carolina is a huge force. I mean, he's not much of a pass rusher. He's a 1st and 2nd down player. He's not going to give you a ton of moves. He doesn't have a lot of moves. But if you're talking about an immovable 2-gapper who can can absolutely, shut down the A gaps against the run, dominate on first and second down, give you a little bull rush, maybe replace a Javon Kinlaw. Jared Clark, remember that name, out of Coastal Carolina. I think he's going to be another day, I believe, day 3 pick that's going to be a real surprise for a lot of people. Now, one guy who I think is great value, and I know the Niners like Jake Brendel, but man, the Michigan center who won the Outland Trophy and Olusegun Olawatimi, um, yeah, he is incredibly strong. I mean, I saw him battling with the Wisconsin defensive tackle, Keanu Benton, and Benton's a house. Benton's really strong at the point. And I felt like Olawatimi, there you go, Olusegun Olawatimi was getting the better of him at the, Olawatimi is just really, really strong. Now they're saying Olawatimi may go in the 4th or 5th round. I mean, the 49ers have 3 picks in the 5th round. If the Outland Trophy winner out of Michigan, who can play center and I think maybe a little bit of guard, if he's on the board in day 3 of the draft, that's got to be one of the great steals I think out there. That one really stands out to me. And then the Miami cornerback Tyreek Stevenson. He got hurt later in the week, but man, I saw him early in the week, and I've liked Stevenson all year from Miami. He's a terrific corner. I mean, rangy, cocky, confident corner who can shut receivers down and mirror them up and down the field. I love the confidence of Tyreek Stevenson. There was one receiver, it wasn't a banner year for receivers, but there was one receiver that, well, really a couple receivers, but one receiver, big receiver that stood out was the Michigan State receiver, Jaden Reed, who, man, in the one-on-ones, he looked great. I mean, this guy can really move. I mean, really move. For a guy who, who's got good size, he moves really, really well. So I really liked what I saw out of him. I mean, you're talking about this guy separates at will, and he's a big-bodied receiver. We're talking about 6'4", pretty good weight, and he's a downfield guy. I mean, I didn't think of Michigan State as a downfield passing attack, but Jaden Reed looked like a guy who could be fantastic down the field. All right, we have a super chat here. Artur Gazaron says, "Can you talk about how teams manipulate the cap? I've heard we have 12 million in cap space, and we're supposed to re-sign a bunch of players, Bosa, E-Man."
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, we can talk about the cap another time.
Incredible.
If we could please stop playing that would be awesome too. But yeah, I mean, as far as manipulating the cap, I mean, basically what you do is you take guaranteed money and you just it's all about extending the contract. You've got a player that let's say you have to pay $10 million to on the cap this year. If you want to extend that player out by 2 or 3 years, you can incentivize them and then spread their $10 million over a 3-year period. But you have to have players, A, that are willing to do it, and B, that you like enough and feel confident in enough that you feel, confident in extending them out multiple years and having their cap number reduced this year, but then giving them what essentially amounts to guarantees in future years. So the one thing about the 49ers is Parag Marate is really, really, really good at that. And so I would imagine Parag Marate is going to jump right in and be, they'll try to manipulate the cap again this year and try to get as many players as possible on this thing. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Well, before we get even rolling here, I wanted to make sure we mention our sponsor, Pig in a Pickle. Our show is brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. The Pig in a Pickle is the best barbecue in the Bay Area. So they have really good barbecue. It's in Corte Madera. They're also in Emeryville in the public marketplace. They're open 7 days a week in Corte Madera. Pig in a Pickle is outstanding. I mean, the ribs, the chicken, the brisket. I mean, it's all just absolutely amazing. And as I said, they have 2 locations. They're at 341 Corte Madera Town Center in Corte Madera. And they are also in the Emeryville Public Marketplace, open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville, and they're open 7 days a week in Marin County. So incredible brisket, incredible ribs. They do potato salad. They do brisket chili. We were there Saturday for lunch. Damon and Mary, the owners of Pig and a Pickle, they believe in making everything fresh every single day. So they work at it, and they work long hours, and that's why they've got a great restaurant, and they're both killer spots. So we talked about it a lot on the show yesterday, and a couple people went there and sent me pictures, which I forwarded to Damon. He was very happy to see that. So yeah, what I want you all to do is go to Pig and a Pickle and have some amazing barbecue, and tell Damon, tell Mary, tell whoever it is that serves you at Pig and a Pickle that you showed up here because of the Krueg show, and that will help the show. That absolutely will. But it's incredible food, and once you go once, you'll be a fan for life. They bake their own bread. They're smoking. They're putting stuff in the smoker right now that will be served tomorrow at lunch, and I'm not even joking. They put their brisket in the smoker right around 7:00 at night for lunch the next day. So, I mean, they smoked the brisket for like 16 hours, and it just drinks in all that flavor. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing brisket. And I won't even make brisket anymore simply because it's just, I can't do it well. I absolutely can't do the brisket well. So now I go to Pig and a Pickle, and I have their brisket, and it is absolutely amazing. So check it out. The brisket chili is incredible. The potato chips, they do homemade potato chips. They only do them in Marin County. They don't do them in Emeryville. The potato chips are cooked in beef fat, and they're seasoned with the same seasoning that Damon seasons the barbecue chicken with, which
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh.
that was courtesy of Len Dempsey right there. But yeah, thanks to all the people at Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. The title sponsor of the Krueg show, Pig and a Pickle. And tell them that Krueg sent you. It is absolutely. MF says, I'm going there next time I'm up for a game. Way to go, MF. But back to the Senior Bowl, because I do want to get a couple more of these players that I really like, because there's a couple that I think are absolutely perfect 49ers. And one of them, the Niners need a cornerback in the worst way, I think. Emmanuel Mosley, they may or may not be able to re-sign him. When you run out of corners, man, you really run out of a chance to win. I mean, it's like running out of a quarterback. I mean, if you can't stop the other team's passing game, you're really hurting. And the guy that really stood out this week was K-State's cornerback, Julius Brents, I should say. And he was incredible in the 11-on-11. I mean, just, you're talking about big, physical, dominant, 6'3", 205 pounds, just rangy and tough, but just has a fluid runner. And, he was not thought to be a high draft choice, but after the way he looked in Mobile this weekend, I would say Julius Brent is very likely to be drafted probably on day 2 of the draft. So maybe he'll be there. The 49ers have 3 picks in the 3rd round, but Julius Brent's from K-State absolutely stood out. The other guy that I thought was incredible, and I think I saw somebody mention his name in the chat, which is amazing to me if somebody did. Let me just double check that. I believe we've got people asking for Pasquale. El Camilo Dorado says Larry keeps hitting 65 new subs a day. He'll be at 25,000 subs as we kick off next season. Wow. I hadn't thought about that. I've thought about that. Yeah, if you have yet to subscribe to the Krueg Show, please do. Hit like to help the algorithm, help more people find us, and help subscribe to the channel. And you'll be alerted every single time that we're going live and doing a show, and you can join us for all of our shows. So that is one of the main reasons you should subscribe, so you can be alerted every time we're going live. And then, of course, you can be a channel member like Val Ramos here. He says, Krueg in the house. And channel members, I think, pay $4.99 a month, and we give them some exclusive content. And we're going to be upping our exclusive content here in the next couple of days. So we will have more for the channel members than we have delivered thus far. But somebody in here, James Cho says, "What up, Larry? Thank you for all the content. You're the man." Appreciate that. We've got this one from Timothy Foster. Says we really need some good O-line players in this offseason. You know, the 49ers, you think of the 49er offensive line as struggling, but the Niners had, if you look at the way at least Pro Football Focus graded them out, they had one of the better offensive lines in pro football. So, you know, their line is actually pretty good. It's just that offensive line play overall is struggling. The Krueg Show, we may or may not be adding secret brisket recipes for members only. No, we will not be adding. We will not be stealing Damon and Mary's brisket recipe. Ryan C says, Covey and Knuckles, love you always, Kruegs. Look at that. Covey by the Bay. Covey, you ought to jump in here, man. We should throw, maybe I'll throw Covey a little text. My son says I got to fix my camera angle. He doesn't like the angle. Let me see here. Let me see if I can throw Covey a text and see if Covey wants to join us. We'll see what Covey's doing. Covey, last I checked, was selling cars in Livermore. Let's see if he wants to join in here. I haven't heard from Covey in a while. But no, the other guy that I've got to mention here, because to me, it's like when you watch, here it is. MF, Tank Dell. So there is a wide receiver named Nathaniel Dell who is tiny. I mean, he's 5'8" and he's 163 pounds. But he is so incredibly explosive. I mean, this guy is just ridiculous vertical threat. Really, really interesting player. And I definitely think that Nathaniel Dell is the kind of player that, if you're looking for somebody who's a home run hitter, who's going to make big play after big play after big play, Nathaniel Dell, who they call Tank Dell, is the guy. Now, the one thing about this player is he's 163 pounds. So 163 pounds, there's a lot of football scouts who don't want any player that's, under 175. There's very few players in the NFL. You saw the little receiver who's the burner for the Rams this year. He weighed like 155, the little speedster out of Louisville. Other than that, I mean, typically you got to weigh 175 pounds or more to play in the NFL. But very exciting player. Very exciting player. When I watched him play, I was like, wow, this is a guy who absolutely could take the top off of defense. And if you want big playability, this guy's big playability was absolutely amazing. He's got total home run ability. Every time he touches the ball, he could take it the distance. But yeah, those are the guys for the most part that stood out to me. Nathaniel Dell, Tank Dell from Houston, the wide receiver. Definitely Julius Brents, the cornerback from K-State. Those two guys I thought were terrific. And the 49ers could really use a big time corner. And you can always use more speed. When you have a ton of speed, that, you can win games on speed alone. I mean, one of the reasons I think the Chiefs have been so good is that they have tremendous speed. And look at they've done the last couple of years on defense, adding guys like Nick Bolton and Willie Gay. I absolutely, the kinds of speed, merchants that can close down space. Offensive football is about creating space. Defensive football is about closing that space down. You need a lot of speed to close down space. And, if you have a Nick Bolton, if you have, Willie Gay, if you have that kind of speed on your defense, it makes all the difference in the world. Now, the other player that really is I'm a big fan of, and I watched him a lot this year, and that's Jamie Robinson from Florida State, who's one of the hardest hitting players in the entire draft. Um, Cocky, big, physical, strong safety who's going to play in the box, but he also can make plays down the field in pass coverage. That's a player to watch, Jamie Robinson. He's one of the great hitters in the game. I thought one of the big surprises this week, as far as somebody I didn't expect to look good, but man, he really did look good, was Darius Rush, cornerback from South Carolina. South Carolina, if you think about, Debo and some of the incredible athletes they've had there in recent years, Shee Smith, and they've got a bunch of guys, especially on the perimeter. South Carolina gets some premier athletes, and Darius Rush is one of them. Terrific corner with size, really dominating, and the kind of player that can change the game. I mean, and probably going to be there in the middle of the draft. Offensive line wise, one of the guys that kind of stood out to me was John Michael Schmitz from the University of Minnesota, who can play inside, but I think there's some versatility there. And, another guy who's solid Big Ten blocker, really good looking player. There was the Wright brothers. I don't know if you guys watched Last Chance U, but Rajon Wright, who plays for Oregon State, I believe his brother was on that show. This is another dominant corner. He's 6'4". He's got a ton of talent, and lots and lots of swagger. So I don't think he's going to be a high round pick, but Rajon Wright out of Oregon State as a 6'4" corner is somebody that is really, really fun to watch. A couple other guys from the national roster. That was from the I guess the American roster. The national roster also had some impressive players as well. I told you about Adetomiwa Adedebowore from Northwestern, who I guarantee you I butchered that name, but he's 285 pounds and just enormously strong and bull rushes people at will. But Ronnie Bell, the big receiver from Michigan, I thought looked good, all over the field. Both of the Illinois kids, Sidney Brown, the corner from Illinois, and then Chase Brown, the running back from Illinois, both those guys looked fantastic. I think I think Sidney Brown could be a day 2 pick. Andre Carter, the defensive end outside linebacker from Army, interesting player. I mean, really long, really skinny, kind of has a little bit of a young Jason Taylor coming out of Akron, who went on to the Dolphins and starred for Jimmy Johnson. Andre Carter from Army is a tall edge rusher who can fly off the edge. Now he can't anchor at all against the run. He's going to get bounced around against the run. So he's more of a third down specialist at this point. But man, you put him in an NFL weight room and give him 2 years and some really good coaching and get him in, like, the 49ers have a perfect system where he could play like a wide 9 defensive end role. I mean, a guy like that in 2 years could just be, maybe one of the best players in this draft. His name's Andre Carter II, and he plays at Army. And easy for Niner fans to remember because they had an Andre Carter out of Cal who played for them years ago. The quarterback that kind of opened my eyes this week, and I know a lot of people don't think he's much of a passer, but man, he made a number of interesting passes both in practice and in the game, and that's Malik Cunningham from Louisville. And I expect he's going to be a day 3 draft choice. But Malik Cunningham has got a little bit of a he's got a nice arm for sure. And I thought his accuracy this week was really, really good. He stood out to me I was expecting him to not be much of a thrower, but the ball came out on time. He throws kind of lasers underneath. He's got tremendous running ability. I mean, you're talking about a two-way player. I mean, Kyle Shanahan talks about Trey Lance as a two-way quarterback or a dual threat quarterback. Malik Cunningham, I think, is going to definitely go probably 6th round, 7th round, maybe undrafted. I don't think he's definitely not going to be a day 1 or day 2 pick. But Malik Cunningham is an interesting name to look for this summer if your team grabs him, because he's got decent size. I would say he's about 6'1" change, but he's got a pretty good arm and he's very fast. And I took a couple hits and bounced off. I mean, you're talking about a really, really good looking athlete. The other guy that I thought I didn't know much about, and I didn't watch tons of Purdue football this year, but Purdue has a tight end named Payne Durham who made a couple of really nice catches and just looks like a good receiving tight end who needs to get stronger. The other quarterback, and I don't want to say that he's Brock Purdy, but the guy who really looked the most like Brock Purdy this week, and when I say looked like Brock Purdy, I'm saying he was in command. The ball came out on time. He played with tempo. He played with rhythm. He threw with accuracy. He looked in control. Is Jake Haener. Jake Haener from Fresno State is a player. He was the MVP of the game. He looked terrific in the practices. He's a 4-year player from Fresno State. He's not big. I mean, he might be smaller than Brock Purdy. He's about 6 feet. He may not even measure out all the way at 6 feet. He's hovering right around 6 feet, but Jake Haener knows how to play. And he can if he gets drafted anywhere before let's say the 7th round, he can thank Brock Purdy for that, because believe me, that will be teams will see Brock Purdy and Jake Haener. And I have a feeling Jake Haener may wind up being a 5th or a 6th round pick. And this year he probably would have gone in the 7th round or undrafted, but next year, because of the popularity of Purdy, Jake Haener is going to get overdrafted. But I like him. I like him a lot. Now, he doesn't have a huge arm by any stretch, and I don't even think he has quite the arm strength of Purdy. I think he's kind of a poor man's Purdy, to be honest, but I still like Jake Haener, and there's no doubt he knows how to play. And he's played a lot of football, and he's really accurate, and he's very competitive. And every time I watch him, he's playing well. I mean, I've seen Jake Haener play a ton, and he's led some amazing second half comebacks. And they're bigger quarterbacks. They're stronger arm quarterbacks. They're more mobile quarterbacks. He's not top of the charts in anything, but Jake Haener knows how to play. And if your team goes for Jake Haener, you can almost bank that he's going to be a really interesting player off the bench for whatever team he happens to go to. The player that I think is in some ways the ideal player for the 49ers, and it's going to be very difficult, if not borderline impossible, to land him in the draft, and that's Isaiah Foskey from Antioch, who played defensive end for Notre Dame. He's 6'5". He's about 245. But, man, I think he played high school ball at De La Salle. Foskey is good. I mean, really good. I watched him all year at Notre Dame. He's stronger than you think. He's got more pass rush moves than you think. He's got really good point of attack strength, and he plays the run pretty well. He went to De La Salle in Concord. He played defensive end and tight end for De La Salle, and then he went to Notre Dame, committed to Notre Dame, and started Notre Dame in 2019. Blocked a punt and had 5 tackles that first year. Then as a sophomore, he had 20 tackles, 4.5 sacks, came back in 2021 as the starter, and, got better and better and better. I mean, give you an idea. I mean, he had 0 sacks in 2019, 4.5 in 2020 with 20 tackles. The next year he has 52 tackles and 11 sacks. The next year he has 45 tackles and 11 sacks. So 22 sacks, 22 of his 26.5 sacks have come off of to the last 2 seasons. He's had a really good 2021 and a really good 2022. You say, well, why do you like Isaiah Foskey that much? I see a lot of what the 49ers had in D Ford with Isaiah Foskey. As I said, 6'5". They list him here at 265. I mean, he doesn't look 265 to me. I don't know what he weighed in at Mobile, but what I love about him is that he's mastered that technique of sacking the quarterback and forcing a fumble all at the same time. You're talking about a guy who had 7 forced fumbles in his career, and they all have come in the last 2 years. So somebody between his sophomore and junior year showed him the technique of how to rip that ball away from the quarterback on the sack, and that's what he does. 11 sacks, 6 forced fumbles in 2021. He had another forced fumble this year and 11 more sacks. He's really good at it. So to me, that's why I love. And he's a 22-year-old defensive end with a great motor and unbelievable strength. And to me, I don't think the Niners. My two favorite players, I'd have to say, in the draft going into the thing are Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame on the defensive end. I just love the total package of the desire, the motor, the strength, the run defense, the ability to force fumbles, just a high ethic football player. And then Michael Mayer, also from Notre Dame. And I'm not a Notre Dame fan. It's not like you're sitting here talking to somebody who went to Notre Dame who's rah-rah Notre Dame. But Michael Mayer is a huge difference maker. I think he's one of the safest players in this draft. And I could see him being a 10-year NFL starter and a 5-time Pro Bowler. And, it would not surprise me at all if he wound up having that kind of a career. So, that's basically who stood out to me at the Senior Bowl. But it just, and there were a couple others as well. Elijah Higgins from Stanford is another one who's fun to watch. Elijah Higgins is, 6'3", 235, and a tremendous athlete. He's really fun to watch and kind of an interesting day 3 pick. 2 other guys that stood out as well. Thomas Incoom, a defensive end from Central Michigan. Kind of a more compact guy, I would say probably in the 6'2" range, but tremendous speed and power off the edge. And I really, really like what I saw from him in some of the drills. Also, the Texas running back, everybody knows that Johnson, their Bijan is their star, but Roshan Johnson, who played for the Longhorns, he was also in Mobile this week, and he was one of the more impressive running backs that I saw all week. He's 6 feet. He's about 225 pounds. He's got tremendous power. He's got good instincts, good vision. And, this was a kid who was recruited to Texas as a quarterback, and he's just got great work ethic, great football instincts, and just a guy who knows how to play the game and works at it. And I thought, when you're talking about this guy was really doing well in the drills, the blocking drills. They're saying he's probably going to go 3rd round, maybe 4th round. But Roshan Johnson out of Texas is a very, very interesting player. There's also, I haven't mentioned him, but it's one of the great names in the draft, DeMarvion Overshone, who plays inside backer for Texas. Texas has developed some really tall inside backers who make tons of plays, and Overshone just is a big hitter. And he just absolutely he's blowing people up. He's got tremendous range, good instincts, probably about 6'4", and just he's one of those guys that he's hard to block, and he's got a good feel. He kind of sifts through traffic and makes a lot of plays. So he's a guy that really stood out to me as well. But yeah, I would say if there was a surprise, it was that the 2 Stanford guys, Michael Wilson and Caillou Blue Kelly, both looked really, really good. I mean, like maybe even day 2 picks. And how the 49ers love their Stanford players because of Lynch. So don't be surprised if Michael Wilson winds up being a day 3 pick to the 49ers, and Caillou Blue Kelly might be a nice depth piece to add for the 49ers coming up after, as I said, I mean, he might go day 2. I think both these guys probably go top of day 3, but, fourth round picks, if that's pretty good value to take, those kinds of players in the 4th round. So, um, also, I wanted to get into we're not going to do a long live stream here because we were hoping to go with Jordan Elliott and we won't. Jordan hasn't shown up, so we're not going to go too long. But some quick thoughts on the Super Bowl. And I don't know exactly what I know. The one thing about the Chiefs is that the Chiefs are really dinged up, and so that's the one thing about Kansas City. I like Kansas City for sure if they're healthy, but the question with Kansas City is who's going to go, how many guys. McCole Hardman's not going to go. Kadarius Toney is hurt. Juju Smith-Schuster's hurt. So that means that the Chiefs receivers are Justin Watson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Sky Moore. That's a lot of receivers out. Willie Gay, the weak side linebacker who runs sub 4.5, he's hurt. L'Jarius Sneed, who might be one of the best players in this game, the right cornerback, he's hurt. So who's going to go and how effective are they going to be? To me, that's the only question I have about Kansas City. Kansas City is a relatively young football team. They got a bunch of guys who they drafted. I'll say this is, John Lynch and Howie Roseman, two of the better general managers in the game. But you know what? Brett Veach is right there with them because you look at Kansas City, this was kind of their transition year. They got rid of Tyreek Hill. They changed out some players. They said goodbye to the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu. And look at all the rookies on this Chiefs team. And they're all playing a role. Isaiah Pacheco, tremendous running back, runs sub 4.4. Sky Moore on offense. Karlaftis on defense. Jalen Watson, Leo Chenal, Joshua Williams from Fayetteville, Trent McDuffie, from UW. The nickelback. The Chiefs are getting a lot of good play out of their rookies. I mean, they're going to have probably close to 10 rookies that are going to be suiting up on Super Bowl Sunday. And, that right there just is a testament to the job they've done personnel wise. But I just look at Kansas City and I agree with Brandon Ayuk, who went on with Brad Graham the other day and said that he likes Kansas City to beat Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is totally beatable. Well, who's Philadelphia beaten this year? They played the worst schedule in football. They beat the New York Giants, and then they beat the 49ers with Josh Johnson. I mean, they haven't beaten anybody. And now here comes Mahomes and Andy Reid and Kansas City and Chris Jones and Nick Bolton and Justin Reed, Thornhill. I think somehow, some way, Kansas City pulls this out. Now, how are they going to do it? I think Kansas City's going to run the ball. I think you got to run the ball at Philly. I don't think you can sit there and just lay back. So, but Andy Reid is such a great play caller. Pacheco is got good size. He's close to 220 pounds, and he runs 4.39. So I would expect a heavy dose of Isaiah Pacheco, a smattering of Jerick McKinnon, and I'll put my money on Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I thought Mahomes looked good in the AFC title game. He didn't look to me at all like a player who was, banged up or hurt. And that was 1 week off a high ankle sprain. Now he gets 2 extra weeks to prepare. So I'm expecting Mahomes to play, I don't want to say pain-free, but I don't think he's going to be that limited. And then you've got Pacheco and McKinnon running the football. You still have Travis Kelce. The Chiefs' interior line of Creed Humphrey at center, and then Joe Thuney and Trey Smith, the guards. I would say that's as good an interior line as there is in the game. But it's going to have to be a run-heavy plan for Kansas City, because with Hardman out and Kadarius Toney and Juju Smith-Schuster at less than 100%, if Kansas City's going to win, and I think they are going to win, they're going to have to do it with Isaiah Pacheco. And they're going to have to do it with Jerick McKinnon. And they're going to have to do it running the ball and a little play action pass off of their runs. So that's how I see that. As far as Kansas City still has a really good defensive line. Chris Jones and Derek Nottie inside, I think are going to have a lot of success. They have Colin Saunders, and then outside you got Frank Clark and you got Dunlap and you still have Mike Dana and Karl Loftus. I think they're going to get some heat on Jalen Hurts. I'd feel better about Kansas City's chances if Willie Gay was playing, because Willie Gay is a absolutely burning fast linebacker. And Nick Bolton as well, tremendous duo. And when those two guys in the game against the 49ers, both of them were healthy and both of them had tremendous games. So the one thing about the Chiefs that's really underrated is that people focus on Mahomes and people focus on their offense. And then on defense, people focus on Chris Jones. And it's all justifiable. But where Kansas City is really elite, I think, is in their back seven. The speed at linebacker, Justin Reed, really strong player at strong safety in the prime of his career. Juan Thornhill, second-round pick out of Virginia in 2019. Really one of the better free safeties in the NFL. And then a jumbo corner in L'Jarius Sneed. They've gotten good play out of Jalen Watson, their seventh-round pick on the other corner. And then now Trent McDuffie, the UW kid who was their first-round draft choice, who didn't play early in the year. Well, McDuffie's playing, and he's playing well. And he's kind of a blue-chip player. He's not the biggest corner ever, but he's a tremendous cover guy, and he looks really good. So, to me, where's Kansas City better? I think Kansas City's back seven is really, really good. And then they have Chris Jones. Frank Clark was probably better 2 years ago. Clark Loftus will be better in 2 years. But, man, every single time Chris Jones has an ability to step in and make a big play, he does. And he's a game wrecker. So I have great, great respect for Chris Jones. Now, let's flip the card and talk about the Eagles for a second. The Eagles are a team that, has a very deep defensive line. Reddick is going to put a lot of pressure, you would think, coming off the edge on Mahomes. But I really think that, inside, Javon Hargrave will be neutralized by Kansas City's offensive interior. So the big question I would have is, can the Chiefs' offensive tackles hold up against Sweat and Graham and Reddick flying off the edge? I think that's a big one. I think the Chiefs have a huge advantage as far as their runners, either in the pass game or the run game against the Eagles linebackers. And then, you always have to be geared up for CJ Gardner-Johnson. He's just a difference maker at strong safety. He has been ever since he's been in the league, and he's playing at a really high level. He's going to get paid a ton in free agency, but this year Howie Roseman made a terrific trade to get CJ Gardner-Johnson, and he's absolutely taken their defense to the next level. And then offensively, you got to be able to stop Miles Sanders in that run. There's no question about that. And I think the Eagles will stay with the run, but I do like Kansas City to be able to score touchdowns and not field goals in the red zone. And that is going to enable, I think, Kansas City to play from a lead in this game. And if you have a lead, you can neutralize Philadelphia's run game to a degree. To me, the guy who really stood out in the last round against the 49ers, even though that game was, over 2 series into the game, was Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell, the running back, he runs hard. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He is a really underrated football player. And Philadelphia's got, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. Both those receivers are top tier guys. But if L'Jarius Sneed is healthy, I still will lean towards Kansas City there. So in my mind, I would make Kansas City like a 2 to 3 point favorite. The fact that the Eagles are favored is a little surprising to me. Now, there are injuries, and there's a chance that some of these guys Philadelphia is healthier. There's no question. Philadelphia is the healthier of the two teams. Philadelphia also has had the easier run through the playoffs, much easier. than the Kansas City. But, you could also say that Philadelphia is not battle tested. How we know how Mahomes is going to, Mahomes typically plays in big games. We don't know how Jalen Hurts will play in the Super Bowl. It's the biggest game of Howie Rose, biggest game of Jalen's life, biggest game of Sirianni's life. We don't know how they're going to react in the moment. We got to, with Reed and with Mahomes, I think you got a pretty good idea. Spagnuolo, who's been there many, many times, Dave Taub, one maybe the most experienced special teams coach in the entire NFL. You got a pretty good idea. Kansas City, comes in. They've been in this game. They understand what it takes. They've won this game and know how that feels. They've lost this game and they know how that feels. So I think Kansas City rolls in. I think Philly is a team that benefits off their home crowd, benefits off their killer pass rush, benefits by getting a lead against teams that suddenly become one-dimensional. Kansas City can pass and pass and pass. They can run and run and run. I just don't think that you're going to do anything early in that game that's going to make Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes go, uh-oh. I don't see it. I mean, I think the one area where I think Kansas City has a major advantage is Isaiah Pacheco is a big back who can break tackles and take it to the house. So he's got big playability. And I think they can make plays with Travis Kelce against the Eagles. So I think you got a passing threat. I think Mahomes is one of the smartest running quarterbacks in the entire league. And then you got a big time runner, and you also have a safety valve in Jerick McKinnon. I would say this: McKinnon's going to have to be a big part of the game plan for Kansas City to win, but I think he will be. And then ultimately, right now, Kansas City's got two rookie corners, Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. McDuffie was a first-round pick. Watson was a seventh-round pick. They even have Joshua Williams, who's a fourth-round pick out of Fayetteville. These are their corners. They've got young corners, really young corners. And the Eagles have two outstanding receivers. But I like the way Kansas City is playing on defense. I like the way they play zone. I like the way they play man. I just think that they're a team that they're a young ascending football team that's getting better week after week after week. So there you go. Couple thoughts as well before we get out of here on the 49ers. We're still in that time where we don't have a lot of Niner news coming out of the season, but Trent Williams let it be known that he's coming back for another year. So that answers the biggest question on the 49ers offensive line. Would Trent come back? And if he does, is he going to hint that he will? Would he tell us early on? Would he wait till the draft? But he told the Niners early on that he's coming back for another year. So that's a huge question. That's probably one of the biggest roster questions right there. You had to have Trent Williams back. Whatever you need to bolster your offensive line, but you also need to make sure that your big boy's there. And that's, if Trent Williams isn't there, then suddenly that would go to the number one need on the football team. So the fact that Trent's coming back is absolutely a good sign. We still don't know who's going to be the 49ers defensive coordinator. Steve Wilkes is a name that's been thrown out there. He is the ex-Panthers interim head coach. And, the 49ers are the number one defense and they lose their coordinator. And there was talk maybe they would offer Kocurek an opportunity to be the coordinator. They've also talked about, they mentioned Vic Fangio. Then Vic Fangio went to Miami. There was talk about, I think, Chris Harris, the Washington Commanders secondary coach, who's taken a job with the Titans, but obviously he's a hot name and one of the up and coming young coaches in the league. But we still don't have an answer on that. And to me, that's a big one, because is the defensive coordinator, is Kocurek staying around? Are they staying with their same defense? Kyle Shanahan kind of intimated that the 49ers were going to stay with the same defensive scheme as they've had in the past. And why not? Why wouldn't you? You had the number one defense in pro football. So we still don't know at this point. Is Kosaric moving on? Is Kosaric is he going with D'Amico to Houston? He played at Texas Tech. He's from Texas. I think that to me is very, very interesting. I'll say this, just from talking to the players, they love Chris Kosaric. And if he's not there, I think that's a major loss for the Niners. Absolutely. It would be very difficult to go forward, I think, and change up your defensive line. If they go away from the wide nine, they may have to change up some of the personnel, and that could be a multiple year process to do that. So that's the first thing they have to get settled on the defensive side of the ball. Celts Chronicles says, Larry, do you think Jason Poe or Nick Zakelj has a realistic chance to start? I would say they both do. I do. Poe needs to get a little stronger. But I could see, Poe's played guard. He hasn't really played center, but I think he looks like a center to me. So I think that one makes sense. And then Nick Zakelj. I think Nick Zakelj, is a guy that's really going to benefit from an off season, working out and just getting stronger. I think they really like him. He's smart. He's tough. He's athletic. He loves to blow people off the ball. And he's really, really physical. So I think there's a very good chance that the Niners let Brunskill walk and replace Brunskill maybe have Zakelj and Burford share right guard this upcoming year instead of having it be Brunskill and Burford, maybe Zakelj and Burford. But I think Zakelj is going to get some run at right guard. And then Poe, if I had to guess, may push Brendel at center. He may just be, a combination guard center, but I like both those guys. I mean, I think you saw Poe's ability to pull. I mean, he's a real nice guy with a fun personality, a great sense of humor. But man, when you watch him on the football field, you feel like, wow, this guy's a killer. He just has so much speed, so much quickness, and he can get to top speed in two steps. So I really like what I've seen out of Poe. And I think Poe's probably a center because he probably not big enough to play guard. But I think both those guys are going to be really good football players. MF says, I agree with Larry. The Niners should trade Trey Lance. Well, I don't say that with any kind of glee or anything. I just think that, what we saw this year, I mean, it's really all about Brock Purdy's health. If Brock Purdy is healthy, then yeah. James Cho basically says that if Purdy's 100, I agree with Larry. Let Trey grow if he isn't playing for the 49ers, or grow if he isn't playing for the 49ers. Trey Lance needs reps. Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I like Trey Lance, and people always say, well, you always say you like Trey Lance and then you rip him. It's not ripping him to say that he's not ready. It's just having eyes. I can see, I can see he's not ready. And the way Shanahan used him tells us that Shanahan doesn't think he's ready. So, you have one quarterback who needs to play and is really raw and probably isn't ready. And then you have another quarterback who's played a lot of football and physically he's not overwhelming, but man, he sure looked good. I mean, in reality, he's got one loss in his pro career, but I think most of us look at it as almost like Brock Purdy's almost undefeated. I mean, nobody's beaten Brock Purdy without, basically knocking him out of the game. He got knocked out of the game. Who knows how he would have played? I think he probably would have played pretty well. That's my sense of it, but maybe that's just wishful thinking. But I think that Brock is the starter next year. I think it's pretty obvious. If you don't want to say that Brock's the starter next year, I mean, what would he have to do? He played with pace and tempo. He did nothing but win. Your offense went from scoring 22 a game to scoring 35 a game. Once you find a guy who you can score 35 points a game with, that's it. Go to the next position. You don't need to go find somebody else. Could Trey Lance do it better than Brock Purdy? I don't think so. I don't think Trey Lance is going to average 35 a game I don't think the Niners offense under Trey will average 35 a game next year. I think there's too many nuances to the position that he needs to work through. Now, I think he'll get there, but I don't think the Niners are going to have the patience for it. And my guess is that they will get some really attractive offers. Now, it may be very punitive cap wise to trade him this year. So it may make sense to just keep them both on the roster this year. But even if they have a competition, if Brock Purdy's healthy in camp, I see nothing that would make me believe that he would lose this job. I mean, these guys didn't really compete for the job last summer. It was given to Trey, and Brock just happened to be there. This year, they'll compete, and who's ever better will play. So, what does that mean? I'm not sure exactly what it means, but to me, if I had to guess, my guess is that Brock would probably outplay Trey this summer and would wind up taking that job. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of the way I see it. We get this one in the chat. Jake Hayner is Julie Hayner's son, as you well know. KTVU. Is that the real Lee Hammer? Lee, if that's you, give me some indication that you and I, and only you and I, know, so I will know that you are the actual Lee Hammer and not just an imposter. Is that an imposter, Lee Hammer? Or is that the actual Lee Hammer? Lee, there's several things that you could say that you know and I know and nobody else knows, and that will tell me if you are the real Lee Hammer. Calvin and Hobbs says, should the Niners package their picks to move up? Draft for need or best available? Not a lot of cap space and lots of free agents to re-sign. That's an interesting one. Well, there's two schools of thought. There's one school of thought that you can never have enough depth and that you want more and more and more picks because guys get hurt. It's football and you can never be deep enough. That's one theory. The other theory is how many rookies realistically can make your roster in a given year. The Niners had a ton of rookies this year. I think about almost 15 when you consider the practice squad and the active roster. So, and they like a lot of those players. So I would think they had such a deep draft last year that this year they might they have 10 picks, but they might turn around and try to go for, a few great players instead of like if you told me that they were going to sell out their whole draft and they were going to trade up and they were going to leave this draft and they were going to have both Michael Mayer from Notre Dame and Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame, I'd say do it. Just do it. Why? Because I think Mayer's a Pro Bowler and I think Foskey's a Pro Bowler. And if you can add a Pro Bowl defensive end and a Pro Bowl tight end to what the roster you had this year, one of the deepest in pro football, you probably are going to at least go to, a Super Bowl or two in the next 2 or 3 years. So I really like those two guys. But generally, I would say do it in numbers, do it with depth. Green Bay, the year that Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl for them against Pittsburgh, they had like 22 guys on season-ending IR. And they still won the Super Bowl. How did they do it? They did it with depth. So I'm a believer in depth, and the Niners are an incredibly deep football team. But I would say, what are the needs? Okay. I think they need a quarterback in this draft, not a day one guy, not a day two guy, most likely, more like a day three guy. Some rookie quarterback that you want to put on the roster. I think you could always use an explosive running back. Always. Receiver, they're pretty set, right? They're pretty set at receiver. Tight end, I think they absolutely need a number 2 tight end or a second number 1 tight end. And that's why I'm so hot to trot on Michael Mayer, because I think he's total difference maker. Every time I watch Notre Dame with Michael Mayer, he's dominating. He's making catch after catch. He's big. He's rumbling. He's a blocker. He's a catcher. He's nice. He's really nice. He would. I would love to see a Kittle Michael Mayer combination for the next decade. That would be incredible. So I would say tight end's a major need. Offensive tackle is a major need. One more interior offensive lineman, I think, is a need. Those are your needs on offense. On defense, I think your primary need is a replacement for Javon Kinlaw. I mean, you need a monster, give no ground, two gapper with great strength. And if he rushes the passer, I mean, that's just gravy. But you got to have somebody inside that can play with, let's say, Hassan Ridgeway, if you bring Ridgeway back, next to Eric Armstead to plug up that A gap. You had DJ Jones for years, and DJ Jones was enormously strong, great inside, but you've lost him to Denver, and the Niners were not good in short yardage defense up the middle this year. So to me, defensive tackle is the primary need. Now, I like their young defensive ends, but they're all free agents. Are you going to bring back Amenahue? Are you going to bring back Jordan Willis? Are you going to bring back Samson Ebukam? Drake Jackson's there. Bosa's there. But are you going to bring back those other guys? If you do, then maybe you don't have a big need for another defensive end. But I would say one more pass rusher would definitely be, called for. I think linebacker-wise, they've got tremendous depth at linebacker, but I would always be looking for one or two fast, undersized, productive college linebackers. I don't consider it a major need, but it's always nice to have those guys. And then I think a major need is the corner. You got to have a corner, or you got to bring back Mosley, and maybe you got to do both. Maybe you got to sign a corner and bring back Mosley. And then I think you're set at strong safety with Hufanga, but free safety, Tayshaun Gibson's a free agent. Jimmy Ward's a free agent. You might need a free safety. I mean, that's another one too. It's like I mentioned before about Riley Moss. Riley Moss might be a really nice day 3 free safety draft choice. As just a guy who has great instincts, great knowledge, great cover ability as a corner at the collegiate level. I don't think he could stand up and cover man-to-man against NFL receivers. But if you moved Riley Moss to free safety and you could get him on day 3 of the draft, that is a very, very special football player in my mind. There was also some interesting players. I want to pull up this roster here. The NFLPA Collegiate Bowl was the other day in Pasadena, and I watched that thing start to finish. And this is kind of, this is an interesting game because this is like these are the guys that get passed up for the East-West Shrine game, or they get passed up for the Senior Bowl. So a lot of times they're more blue chip. They're more not blue chip players. They're more developmental players and day 3 players. But there's always a couple that really stand out. And the Notre Dame defensive tackle, Jason Adamilola, is, another undersized interior guy, but just ridiculous strength for about 280 pounds. And so he's another guy. He's a pass rushing interior tackle who has to play in a rotation. So he's not the replacement for Kinlaw. He's more like a replacement if you lost like a Kevin Givens, or if you needed a rotation pass rusher. But the game is so much now about rushing the passer, and it's about pass rush. And it's like, now I almost would rather have an extra guy up on game day who could be that interior rusher. I mean, Notre Dame plays a lot of stunting games as well. If the Niners wind up doing more of that going forward, they've already done a lot of it this year, I think a guy like Adamilola is really interesting. Jason Adamilola, he wore 77, and really impressive player. Undersized interior player, but man, the motor, the toughness, the functional strength, really, really impressive player. Another player that stood out I already mentioned to you Malik Cunningham, the quarterback from Louisville. He played in that thing. But if you watch TCU and Sonny Dykes' team in the national semi against Michigan, they've got a running back named Amari Dermercado who busted Michigan that night for 150 yards. And I mean, you're talking about one of the best short yardage backs in all of college football. I mean, this guy hits the pile, he moves the pile. Really, really impressive player. And I mean, he's like one of those guys where if you see him, his highlight reel is not that impressive, but you can't bring him down. You can't stop him. I mean, he's a tremendous short yardage player. Also, the UCLA tight end, Michael Ezeke, Ezeike, huge, rangy target. One of the best looking tight end prospects I think I've seen this year. He's going to be fun to watch. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's, very tall, long arms, big hands, and I think is a guy that can be a difference making tight end if he gets a little stronger once he reaches the NFL. Couple other players that I thought stood out. Texas Tech has a linebacker named Krishan Merriweather, and this guy's led Texas Tech in tackles 3 years in a row. Had some huge tackle totals in some of the games for Texas Tech. And I watched Jordan Brooks, this year with Seattle, who's a former Texas Tech inside backer. And I see a lot of the same traits with Krishan Merriweather. I mean, if the Niners let Azeez Al-Shaair go at the end of the year in free agency, and he winds up going to the Texans and joining D'Amico, and they're looking for day 3 linebackers in the draft, Krishan Merriweather for Texas Tech absolutely would be on the top of my list. Another guy who's kind of interesting, and this is another shows you how recruiting in college football has changed. Joseph Nada, who's from, I believe, Sacramento or Rockland, I think, and didn't play anywhere in the Pac-12 and just jumped to Clemson, and Dabo Sweeney got him to go play at, in Clemson, South Carolina. Big physical wide receiver who's probably going to be a day 3 pick as well. And just, got some dominant traits, very strong, very powerful. And for a day 3 wide receiver, I think that's going to be if he's there in day 3, I think he's a really interesting player. Also on the team that was coached by Eddie George, on the American team, which was coached by Jeff Fisher, they also had some interesting football players that I thought kind of stood out to me. One is Corey Durden, the NC State defensive tackle, very, very strong. I mean, 320 pounds or whatever he is, and he just looks like a force inside. NC State has had a lineage of really good defensive linemen through the years, and looks like they've got another one here. Corey Durden looks like a nice player inside for them. Also, Malik Heath, who started at Mississippi State, and he's like the rare guy who transferred from Starkville to Oxford. He went from Mississippi State to Ole Miss, but he had a couple leaping grabs in this game for footballs that were thrown up high, and Malik Heath looked like he had some really dominant physical traits that were fun to watch, and I could see him having a lot of success at the next level. And then there was one more before we get out of here that I want to tell you guys about. See if I can find him on this list. Well, Lindsey Scott played quarterback for Incarnate Word, and he's an underrated player. This guy threw for 70 touchdowns this year. 70. You got to look at him. I mean, just that alone makes him interesting. Also, the Wyoming running back, Sven Titus, another interesting player. The Texas Tech running back, Roderick Thompson, or I should say Titus Swen, I should say, is the running back for Wyoming. Really interesting running back. I thought he looked really, really good. The Penn State receiver, Mitchell Tinsley, had a really good week of practice as well. Kind of shifty, made a bunch of catches along the sideline. So a lot of interesting players definitely in that one, in the NFL PA Bowl. So as far as the channel, tomorrow is the day we are going to be sending out the t-shirts. So if there's anybody else who wants a t-shirt, the $25 plus shipping, but we're going to try to get those all sent out tomorrow. I got the envelopes. So for those of you who told me you wanted a Krueg Show t-shirt, just, if you haven't already sent it to me or sent me your address, send me your address and we'll get them sent out. And then somehow we'll figure out some kind of a Venmo payment system for everybody to pay for their t-shirts. But yeah, they're $25 plus shipping to get a Krueg Show t-shirt. And it's a good looking shirt. It's kind of like our logo, black shirt with the red logo. Glass Half Full guy says, I'm with you, Larry, to bring back Willis, etc. for D-line depth, but the 49ers need a good bookend opposite Nick Bosa. Just doesn't seem like they've had that yet. Well, it's always difficult to find pass rushers. You're always going to have to overpay for them in free agency. To me, it's more about seeing if you can find a guy that you like in the draft. One of the guys that's really interesting is the Ohio State defensive end. Let me see, Ohio State. Harrison, I think his name is. Big bodied. I mean, you're talking about like 6'6", 270, and really fast. I think his name's Harrison, and a tremendous player. I mean, I saw him this year, and I'm like, wow, this guy is something else. And he's one of those guys that's going to go to Indy, and he's going to run some crazy time. And Zach Harrison is his name. Zach Harrison, 4th-year junior defensive end. He's 6'6", 272. And you can just tell when you watch him play, he just runs incredibly well. So wasn't very productive in the first half of the year, was incredibly productive in the second half of the year. Super blue chipper as far as body type and size, strength, speed. It's unbelievable. There's very few guys like that in the draft every single year. I mean, it's, there you see a lot of good players, but 6'6", 270, 275, lean, fast, and can get the quarterback. That's pretty rare, but Zach Harrison's got that. I think he's going to be a day 2 pick. The Niners don't have, or I think he's going to be a 2nd round pick. Niners don't have a 1st or a 2nd round pick, so he probably is not going to be available to them. But for whatever reason, if he slips to the 3rd round, yeah, I mean, that might be the best 3rd round pick in the entire draft. Remember that name, Zach Harrison. From the Ohio State Buckeyes. Buckeyes just get some absolute blue chip players. Seems like year after year after year. All right. What do we want to do here? Let's play some spots right here. We'll come back with a few thoughts, and then we'll bolt for the door on the Krueg.
Larry Krueger here for Telmetrics. Thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics. If you're an occupational therapist, if you're an orthopedic surgeon, a chiropractor, a physical therapist of any kind, Telmetrics is designed for you to use in your practice and will greatly benefit your patients. Telmetrics uses computer vision and artificial intelligence and provides a platform for outpatient rehab therapy services, both in the clinical and the telehealth environments. So using Telmetrics can improve your patient's experience and much more. So for all your sports injury needs, or if you're a physical rehabilitation specialist of any kind, make sure you use telmetrics.co, Telmetrix.co. And thanks to Casey Bateman and all the good people at Telmetrics for being a proud sponsor of the Krueg. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Dan Coach Emilio. Dan is a buddy, and he is a phenomenal retirement planning specialist. And you can contact him today at securemoney.com or at his number 925-628-9966. There's a lot of uncertainty in our world right now, and you want to make sure that your money is secure. That is the key. Danny's got 25 years of experience, born and raised right here in the Bay Area, and he can help you get an immediate 10% premium bonus on your principal retirement account. So give him a call, 925-628-9966. He'll make an appointment with you, and you can sit down. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of a deal. He'll consult with you and come up with a strategy to get you going to where you want to be. Once again, 925-628-9966. And thanks to Tony Cassera and the good people at Cassera's Italian Menswear. They are housing the Krueg Show t-shirts, and they're a proud sponsor of the show as well. The Krueg Show t-shirt, the Krueg Show podcast t-shirt is available there at their store in Dublin. Their address is 7372 San Ramon Road in Dublin, California. And go see Tony Cassera and get yourself a Krueg Show t-shirt and support the show. And special thanks to our sponsor, New York Style Italian Sausage. That's right, NewYorkStyleSausage.com is their website. Phenomenal product, whether it's the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy, the chorizo. You cannot go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage. Once again, NewYorkStyleSausage.com. Often imitated, never equaled.
We grew up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, back with you on the Krueg Show on a Sunday night. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Big story today was the trade in the NBA. How about that? The trade deadline is getting close. It's Thursday, February 9th. And today, the Brooklyn Nets traded Kyrie Irving and Markieff Morris to the Dallas Mavericks for Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, and draft picks. Woj had it. You know, I know there are a lot of people that are being critical of the Dallas Mavericks for making this trade. Like, oh, how could you bring Kyrie Irving into your mix and this and that? They were looking for a star, and they got a star, and they didn't trade a star. So I think they're the winner in the trade. Dorian Finney-Smith is athletic. Spencer Dinwiddie, Spencer Dinwiddie's older. He's got a big contract. Obviously, he's there to make the money work. I don't know exactly what the draft choices are, but okay, so it's a 2029 first, and then it's a 2027 and a 2029 second. So I like this deal from Dallas's perspective. Dallas has a chance in a watered down Western Conference to go to the finals. And why would you not make a trade like this? I don't see, they didn't give up anything. They're not going to miss Dinwiddie. And now you're adding a player that if he's motivated, I mean, Dallas is right now the 6th seed. They're 28 and 26. But look at the West. Who's awesome in the West? Denver? You like Denver that much? I don't. You like Memphis that much? I don't. Sacramento is the 3 seed. The Clippers are the 4 seed. And there was talk the Clippers were going to get Kyrie. So not only do the Mavericks get Kyrie, they keep him from the Clippers. And then Phoenix was also talking about Kyrie. And they're, but I mean, none of these teams in the West, Minnesota's the 7, the Warriors are the 8, Pelicans are the 9, Utah's the 10. But there's not one team there. I don't look at Denver and go, wow, oh my God, Denver. Denver is sub 500 on the road. That's right. They've lost more games than they've won on the road. They're the 1 seed in the Western Conference. So, Memphis is terrible on the road. They're 11 and 16 on the road. So I look at those teams in the West and I think, you know what? The West is wide open. And I think Cuban probably sees it the same way. So I like this move from the Mavericks. I was listening to Mark Willard today driving around, and he was I think on FSR, Fox Sports Radio, doing his weekend gig. And I love Mark, but he was panning the deal from the Dallas perspective. Dallas is the big winner here. They're getting Irving. Now, Irving is a little crazy. He thinks the world's flat. He's probably not the best for chemistry. I don't know how it's going to work long term, but Dallas was looking to kind of blow it up and find a second star for to go with Luka. Now the big question I would have is, can Kyrie and Luka blend? They both seem like on the ball guys who don't feel like, they almost seem lost off the ball. And is that going to be the case? I mean, if they can't play together, obviously that's going to hurt that trade. That's a major aspect of this trade, is can those two guys play together? But I got to think there's a very good chance that they can play together. And I like that from Dallas's perspective. I think Dallas is better now with Kyrie than they were yesterday. I don't know. That's how I see that. I think Dallas is a better team now than they were yesterday. And if you're Dallas, look at the Western Conference. Why would you not go for it? I mean, go for it. By the way, yesterday Steph got hurt, and they diagnosed him with a partial tear to the superior tibial-fibular ligaments and the interosseous membrane, and he's also got a contusion in his lower left leg, which is a bruise. The team will determine a timeline for his return over the next couple of days, but it sounds like he's going to be out, more than just a day or two. Like, it may be an extended period of time. So that will be interesting. A lot of people say that now that Steph is out, that it dials up pressure on Bob Myers to make, now he's got more pressure on him to make a trade. I don't know that that's the case, but I thought they needed to make a trade anyway. And, personally, I just think that they're a little stale. I don't think that they can make it to the finals if they don't get anything out of Moody or Wiseman. And it doesn't seem like they're prepared to play those guys. So I'd definitely be interested in seeing, what they potentially could get in return in a trade, but it has to be the right kind of trade. I don't want to hand away Wiseman for Caruso. I like Caruso as a role player, but he's a role player. I don't want to trade James Wiseman for a role player who's got 1 year left on his deal. To me, that could look horrendous down the road. Interesting looking at the deals that the Nets passed up for Kyrie. Supposedly they wanted Russell Westbrook and first round picks and swaps and Austin Reeves and Max Christie from the Lakers for Kyrie. There was a lot of talk that Kyrie wanted to play with the Lakers. The Clippers offered Luke Kennard, Terrence Mann, a first round pick, and a pick swap for Kyrie. That's interesting. The Suns, according to the reports, offered Chris Paul, Jay Crowder, 3 first-round picks, all going to Brooklyn, but they passed that up. So obviously, they've either really wanted Dorian Finney-Smith or have some great feeling about the potential for Spencer Dinwiddie, or I don't know. I'm not sure what to say other than that, because it doesn't seem like to me, they didn't get fair value at all for Kyrie Irving. If I'm a Dallas fan, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that I got Kyrie Irving for that. You're getting now. The only question is, can Kyrie coexist with your current star, which is a major question. But if he can, I think Dallas becomes one of the teams to beat in the West. And, that I thought was kind of interesting. The other thing, a football rumor that I saw today that I thought was kind of interesting, Jeff Howe from The Athletic writes that the Jets do not intend to trade Zach Wilson. They're still hoping he can develop while learning more in a backup capacity. There's a lot of speculation that the Jets are going to try to get a veteran. Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo are the three names that keep coming up. As far as who's going to be the next veteran to go to the Jets, but I thought there was a very good chance that they would trade Zach Wilson and maybe move on from the BYU kid. It sounds like they have no interest in moving on. So they're going to stay with Zach Wilson and try to make a deal. As far as Golden State, 27 and 26. It's a weird vibe around the team. Do they need to make a move? I don't know. I mean, do you guys think they need to make a move? I kind of think they do. I think they seem a little stale. I think they seem like they could use a little injection of life. That's what I see with Golden State. I see a team that, yeah, could they win? I mean, I would definitely not want to argue that the Warriors could not win a title based on the way I've seen them play this year, but it's all based on them doing something in the future that this group has never done at any point this year. They're going to have to get on a run, and they haven't run off 7 of 9. They haven't won 11 of 13. They haven't gone 17 and 2 over 19 games. They haven't played with any kind of consistency. So I don't know if it's in there or not, but I think they need they need some size to go with Looney, whether it's Wiseman or a different big man. And they need another rotation player that they can really depend on. Now, the deal that I like is Wiseman and Moody to the Pistons for Nerlens Noel and Sadiq Bey, because I think Bey would give them a rotation player of significance, and Noel would give them a big body, run the floor, shot blocker, big, who could help out with Kevon Looney. Right now, they're incredibly thin in the front court, and their rotation lacks. They're down a really good NBA rotation player. I think they also miss GP2 badly, but they've also gotten in some ways something out of DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo has given them more of a playmaker and a little bit of more of a versatile player, where GP2 didn't have that versatility, but he was a shutdown defender and a finisher inside. So they missed the big time shutdown defender, but they're missing Bielitsa and his ability to shoot the three. They're missing Porter and his ability to shoot the three. Their rotation's a little thin. They're lacking in some size, and they don't seem like confident in putting James Wiseman out there, and they don't seem at all interested in putting Moses Moody out there. So if you're not going to put those guys out there, I would rather Mike Myers. I'd rather Bob Myers. I'd rather Michael Myers. I'd rather Bob Myers find a good trade partner. One of the teams that came up yesterday when we were talking about, who would be a good trade partner for the Warriors, and one of the teams that came up was the Orlando Magic. And I think Orlando would be an outstanding trade partner for Golden State. Why? Because they've got some of the, one, they're thinking about the future, but two, they've got some pieces: Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter Jr., Terrence Ross, Mo Bamba, and others. I mean, Bol. I mean, not that they're moving Bol, Cole Anthony, Franz Wagner, Suggs, but I mean, they've got a roster full of guys that I think I'd have a lot of interest in. And I could see that working out. I could see Orlando and the Warriors being a good fit for one another. So to me, if there's one team to kind of keep your eye on as we look towards the trade deadline on Thursday, it's the Warriors, possibly matching up with Orlando. And the deal that I love, as I said, is with Detroit. But, I don't know how James Wiseman's viewed by other teams in the league. To me, he seems like a really talented young player who's never gotten an opportunity. But maybe other teams see him as a bust. I saw a highlight the other, from when he played a couple nights ago, where the ball went up on the glass. Somebody took a shot from outside and it went, and he had low post position, but he allowed the opposing team player to just kind of uproot him right out of there. He didn't push back at all. He didn't try to get in good rebounding position. It ultimately did not matter, as I said, because the shot went, and so he just jogged down to the other end. But that's what I'm saying. He doesn't want to bang down low. He doesn't want to. He doesn't pursue rebounds with any. He's not natural. He's not a natural rebounder. He doesn't naturally go to the ball. So I'm a little concerned about the makeup of James Wiseman. And everybody's assuming that if you trade him now, he's going to get better in the future. But there's also the risk that he gets worse. And if he gets worse, his value goes down. So right now, he's a speculative asset, right? You don't know if he's worth a lot or worth a little. And yeah, you could trade him right now and look really bad because he could be worth a lot. But you could also trade him now and he could be worth a lot less, in 6 months. And you could have made a trade at the right time. And the guy that I think of when I think of that is Andrew Bynum, who at times Bynum, as a young player, people thought, oh my God, he's going to be incredible. Well, where is he? Where is he right now? He's out of the league and he's not old. So what happened? He broke down. If you had made a trade for him early on, you probably paid a pretty price, but obviously his value went down very, very, it dropped precipitously as he spent more time in the league. One on the chat from Digital Drew. He says, are the Warriors trying to make Wiseman a banger when he wants to be a wing? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an unfortunate thing. You're 7'1", 250, 260 pounds, and the only time you really look engaged on the floor is when you're facing up from 18 or more. That's a problem. That's a problem. He seems like a guy who really likes to, shoot face up jumpers and face up set shots. And, I need him to bang on the low block and catch lobs and, finish lobs and finish plays and block shots and take every shot in the lane personally and rebound the hell out of the basketball. And he doesn't show any real ability to do any of it. He doesn't look like he can catch lobs. He doesn't look like he understands the spacing. It's really strange watching him. He doesn't look like he's got that killer instinct for the rebounds. He just looks kind of like a finesse face up, like a stretch five. And you're talking about a guy who can jump and run, and he's 258 pounds, and it's like, come on. To me, I would see if there was some combination of a couple players that you could get for him, and I'd get down the road. There's a chance his value skyrockets. You look bad. There's also a chance that his value plummets and you get nothing. So I'd be I'd be equally worried about getting nothing as trading some future superstar. And I think I would. If I could get as I said, if I could get a Nerlens Noel and a Sadiq Bey, I'm pulling the trigger for sure on James Wiseman. MF says Giants are a mess. Oof. MF, I don't even know what to say about that. Why did the Giants not replace Brandon Belt? They're just going with Lamont Wade. And Lamont Wade's a terrible defensive player. Kapler was making it sound like he was good. He's not. So I don't get that. You say goodbye to Brandon Belt and you replace him with a guy who hit 207, who's probably more of a minor league player. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. And then as far as, the goal in the offseason was to get more athletic up the middle. That's the same exact crew. It's the exact same people. I mean, how did they get more athletic up the middle? They didn't. So I guess I'll hold off. I'm still hoping that Vaughn Brown in center and maybe Casey Schmidt at third and maybe Kyle Harrison on the mound. Maybe there's some surprises in camp from some of the young players who come out of nowhere and are ready to play, but I don't know. I'm not seeing it. I don't understand first base. I don't understand center field. I heard Marty say that they have better pitching They do not have better pitching. They have worse pitching. They lost Carlos Rodon, and they replaced him with Sean Manaea and Ross Stripling. And I like Sean Manaea and Ross Stripling as flyers, but let's not pretend they're better than Carlos Rodon. My God, what are we talking about? MF says I'm rooting hard. Yeah, we're all rooting for him. We're all rooting for him. It's just a matter of, this. I mean, there was an awful lot of discussion about how they're better than the Diamondbacks. I don't think they're better than the Diamondbacks. I don't. I'm not even 100% sure that they're better than the Rockies. So I'm a little concerned, to be honest, on the Giant front. But it'll be interesting. And, who knows? Maybe this will be the year that they'll get lucky and 3 or 4 players will be ready to graduate out of the farm system and into the major leagues and do something of significance. I mean, if Casey Schmidt can hit, from what I've been told, Casey Schmidt is a great fielding third baseman. So if you add in a Matt Chapman defender at third and he's got a good bat, that might be interesting. But still, first base with Lamont and center field with Yaz, I don't know. And as far as the depth, I don't see it. I'm a little concerned, to be honest. But you never know. You never know. And heck, a couple years ago, they won 107 games, and I thought they were a 500 team. I mean, in 2021, when they won 107, I thought, oh, yeah, 500 club. And then they just kept winning and winning and winning and winning and winning. And I still, to this day, think it's one of the greatest aberrations I think I've ever seen in my lifetime, was what the Giants did a couple years ago. Last year, they came crashing back to earth. We'll see. We'll see what they can do. We'll see if Farhan can give Gabe a decent hand of cards, and we'll see if Gabe can get these guys to play hard for him. There won't be the shift. There'll be some changes. There's going to be some rules changes that will make the game, I think, a little bit interesting to watch, at least initially. But, man, the Giants have got to find that power bat that can hit 3, 4, 5, and that power arm that can anchor their rotation, or that power arm who can anchor their bullpen. And if they wind up finding all three, if they can find a closer, find an ace, and who knows? I mean, you just never know. Baseball's a weird thing. Sometimes, what if they go to spring training and Kyle Harrison looks like, a guy who's ready to front their rotation, and now you can go Harrison as a lefty and Webb as a righty at the top of your rotation. That would change things. What if they show up in Cactus League and RJ Dabovich, or one of these young arms in the pen, is really ready to roll opposite Camilo Doval, and now they can close the door in the 8th and 9th inning? That will make a big impact. What if they show up in spring training and Elliot Ramos is, hitting rockets all over the yard and has solved his offensive woes? Or what if they show up and Casey Schmidt is suddenly hitting big league pitching, or Vaughn Brown, who's older, even though he hasn't played at the highest levels of the minors? What if Vaughn Brown is this huge shot in the arm, center field, high energy guy? Then that changes the equation. So they need to get, let's be honest, the Giants need to get lucky. They need to get lucky. If it's just based on who they have right now and what those guys have done in the past, they're cooked. But if they can get lucky, and Harrison's a stud, and a couple prospects can hit, and they've got a killer reliever to go with a couple other young relievers that emerge. If something like that happens, you're going to need not one break. I don't think one break will make them a contender. I think they're going to need 3 to 5 breaks. But you know what? Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened than 3 or 4 guys, maybe 5, coming out of nowhere and, having productive years. So until proven otherwise, we'll just go in the hope meter and hope it all happens. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm going to be doing a live stream on Grant Cohn's show. We'll also do more I'm going to put out some videos tomorrow from the All-Star games, talk a little bit more about some of the players that I really, really like. And we'll have a lot more content throughout the week on the channel. On Tuesday, I'll be on Vish's channel. And then Wednesday, Grant's going to join me on my channel. So Monday, I'm on Grant's channel. Tuesday, Vish is on our channel, or I'm on Vish's channel. Wednesday, Grant's on my channel. Thursday, Vish is on my channel. And then, and I'm really, we'll try to work in some of the other people as well and get some interviews from the Super Bowl as well. We got some big announcements to tell you about in the days ahead. I want to thank everybody who's in the live stream right now. If you're not already a member or subscribed, or if you haven't hit like, please hit like and subscribe. If you want to become a member, please do. And then if you want to get a t-shirt for me, they're $25 plus shipping. Just send me your address and we'll get that all settled in the next day or two. And then, thanks to everybody. We eclipsed 13,000 subs just in the last day, and we've added 3,000 subs just in the last 4 weeks alone. So lots of growth on the channel. It's been absolutely incredible to watch. And I just want to thank all of you guys for supporting the channel and for being here for us when we go live and do these things. We're having a good time doing it. Hope you're enjoying it as well. James Cho says, thank you, Larry. Thank you, James. What else? Oh, here we go. Digital Drew says 13,000. Quite the momentum, Larry. Congrats. Thank you. Thank you, Digital Drew. Carlo P says, indeed. Calvin and Hobbs says, congrats, Larry. Celts Chronicles, you're definitely not lazy. You're not lazy. Larry, don't be lazy. James Cho says, see you guys later. And tomorrow night, we're going to do another live stream after the Warrior game. I think the Warrior, let me double check that. I think the Warriors go tomorrow night, right? We double check that. Or is it Tuesday? No, it's Monday, isn't it? I think it's Monday. Warriors. Yeah, Warriors against the Thunder at Chase. So tomorrow, to remind you, I'll do a live stream tomorrow with Grant on his channel. We'll do another live stream tomorrow. In addition to that, on some of the All-Star stuff, we'll put out some videos tomorrow, and then catch us tomorrow night after Warriors Thunder. And we'll be looking ahead to the trade deadline and talking a little Warrior basketball tomorrow night. And Rye and Danny and hopefully Red and maybe Cy and Baller will all be along, and should be a lot of fun. Carlo P says, Larry, I DM'd you for a shirt on Twitter. I know, Carlo, the only problem is that you don't have Venmo. So we got to figure out how we're going to do this, but we'll definitely figure it out. And then Aussie Rules says, thank you, Larry. Great job once again. Aussie Rules says, like. MF says, hope the stale Giants doesn't deter Ned from coming on. Are you kidding me? Ned loves coming on. And MF, I have not forgotten about your request for Tim Ryan, and I called Tim Ryan. I will call him again and see if we can get Tim on the show this week. Now that I know that he's got free time on his hands. Every time I think about the Super Bowl, I think the 49ers should be there. It makes me sick that the Niners didn't just lose, but the fact that they lost really just, it was more like no contest than a loss. And it's I don't know about you, but for me, it's a hard thing to stomach that the Niners got beat by the Eagles, because we just didn't get to see it. We just didn't get to see it. And I really think that if the Niners had been healthy, I think they would have won that game. I really think they would have won that game. I know that's loser talk, but that's how I honestly feel. All right, guys, have a great rest of your Sunday night. Thanks for stopping by the Krueg Show.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one